all for joining. We'll get started in just a minute. If you'd like to register for our next two webinars, you can do so by scanning the QR code on your screen, or you can visit our website at singsingprisonmuseum.org and sign up for them by going through the link in the calendar. You can also sign up for our newsletter there. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll begin in just a minute or two. Great. Thank you all for joining us. And to get things started, I'd like to welcome the Assistant Director of the Sing Sing Prison Museum, Amy Hufnagel.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for making time for this webinar program, a series at the Sing Sing Prison Museum titled Carceral Conversations, What I Brought Home and What I Left Behind. Formerly incarcerated people share memories and personal collections. My name is Amy Hufnagel, and I'm the Assistant Director of the museum project, slated to open in 2025. Together with my colleagues, we're presenting this as the fourth in a six-part series. It happens every second Thursday through February and March in this webinar or virtual space. If you enjoy today's program, please share the link on our website calendar with friends or in your social media networks, because this helps us spread the word about these conversations. Each program is designed to build on the previous conversation, but also stand alone. And they're informing our audiences, but they're also informing us as the staff in terms of our own thinking about collections and objects and storytelling at the museum. The comments from you, your questions matter too. They also play a role in the way we're thinking about the museum project's development. And so we hope you'll participate this evening. And at the very least, please take time to take our survey and share your impressions about your experience with the program, because it'll inform the things that we do next. We really care about your point of view. So I have some housekeeping and just general information to share before we start. First, I just want to give you an outline of how the program will unfold this evening. So after my introductions, we'll turn to my colleague who will share an item or some information from our actual museum collection. And then we will be in conversation with Anthony Small and the museum staff, Mimi and Robert, followed by hopefully discussions with you all. I like seeing where you're all coming in from. Thank you so much for sharing that information. It begins our dynamic dialogue with each other. Second, we start every program by talking about language. At the Sing Sing Prison Museum, we use people first language. So we don't talk about inmates or convicts or felons. We talk about currently and formerly incarcerated people, returning citizens, people who have been recently released, and justice-impacted individuals, which is anyone who has been touched by the justice system. I don't expect everyone to follow these terms, but we think it's part of our educational mission to bring this forward and talk with you about it as we begin. Third, engagement. So we're hosting this as a nonpartisan event to foster open and inclusive educational dialogue and discourse about incarceration, history, material culture, and civic engagement in the United States. We welcome your participation in the chat, and we will be monitoring both. So we hope that we can keep all of this very respectful and mutually full of care. Please consider using the Q&A tab for your questions, and feel free to share thoughts or ideas or even resources in the chat. But we will use the Q&A function for the questions. Fourth, we hear a lot, who is and what is the Sing Sing Prison Museum? Well, we are an independent nonprofit organization led by a deeply dedicated board of trustees and a very small staff. And we are creating a museum in Austin, New York, whose mission is to share stories of incarceration and reform, past and present, and bring people together to imagine and create a more just society. As I conclude this evening and open the program, let's move from these small details about the program to the deeper and bigger ideas that informed its development. This program came from the idea that we want previously incarcerated individuals to inform our thinking and our actions as we form the museum. How do we think about collections and material culture from this point of view? So tonight we are learning along with you as we all activate what it means to remember one's experience with things. Objects prompt memory or prompt tellings. For instance, I have a stone on my desk and it tells the story and makes me think about the time. You get the point. So while we're going on, mostly focusing on physical objects and physical things, we also know that we are always collecting and shedding experiences and ideas and feelings and skills. So it's much more than just the objects that define our experience. Thank you in advance to our presenters, who each one is being so generous with their experiences throughout the series. We know this is a hard place to ask you to revisit, and we appreciate you remembering publicly with us to help build understanding. In the spirit of sharing, let's start from the vantage point of the museum's current collection, things that we've already collected and have in our holdings. Something my colleague Nicole Hamilton and I are probing constantly. Nicole is the collections and program manager, and she has a lot of experience in the field and a background in museum education. And Nicole, we're so interested in what you're going to bring forward for us this evening.
Amy, thank you for that introduction. My name is Nicole. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I want to thank you all for being here. And I'm so excited to share a few pieces from our collection. So if you've been following this series, you may have noticed a bit of a through line or a trend. A few of our guests have talked about the same object, specifically shoes, and also a bit more broadly about what they wore. These things all had different meanings for each person, but if I remember correctly, something that they each talked about was whether something was part of their uniform or sort of issued to them, or something that they made themselves. This might have led some of you to a very natural question. Where did some of these things come from when they were given to them by the state? So one moment while I set this up. Hopefully you all can see my screen now. So in 1912, all of those clothes, the shoes, the things that people wore when they were incarcerated would have been ordered from the 10th edition of the Prison Department Industries catalog. This is essentially a mail order catalog of different things manufactured in New York State prisons, such as Auburn, Clinton, and of course, Sing Sing. So how does this catalog come to be? Because it is kind of a strange thing, you think about it. Well, there are a few important developments. The first, in 1894, under pressure from both prison reformers and labor unions, New York State abolished the contract labor system. This catalog then also references a 1909 law relating to the sale of prison-made goods. So I'm going to share part of that law, and I want to preface with the fact that this uses terms that, as Amy said, our museum does not, such as prison or convict. However, because it is a primary source, we're not going to change that language. There's a lot of text. It's not even the complete law. It's two parts of it referenced by the prison industries catalog. Section 175 is essentially stating that anyone incarcerated in New York State is employed for the state for its benefit. The contract labor system that was abolished had incarcerated people working for private business and often for notably low wages. Again, that's why labor unions also objected to this. Section 182 of this 1909 law says that anything manufactured in the prisons is for use by the state and the public institutions thereof, and the political divisions of the state and the public institutions thereof. So this means public schools and libraries, state-owned hospitals, municipal services like the fire department or waste disposal. This section also states that these state and public institutions can only buy goods manufactured within the prison. So let's look at what's actually being manufactured and sold. One of the first things we see in this catalog is a category of objects called suitings. And this is the fabric used to make a uniform. And we see right away that the suitings for prison and penitentiaries are manufactured in a prison. In fact, they're manufactured in Auburn, which you can see up in this corner. These are woven fabrics and not the finished articles. So for finished clothing, we actually need to look at some of the next pages. These are examples of men's hospital shirts. They weren't made at Auburn, they were actually made at Clinton. And then other garments available include underwear. And I included this because it lends some insight into how they determined which facility manufactured which things. It wasn't just who had the capacity to sew or, the correct materials needed to do that. So in this case, we have a quote, "Many of the articles to fit particular requirements are designed and made here. The proximity of Sing Sing to many of the large institutions enabling the department to follow the suggestions offered by officials in developing or improving some garment or accessory for use by the inmates of the institutions of the state." So they're specifically calling out that because of Sing Sing's location, it's actually the ideal place to be creating knitted underwear. And in case you are curious about early 20th century underwear, here's an example, nothing too salacious. Other clothing manufactured at Sing Sing included uniforms. So as I said, some of these objects were used by municipalities, so like a street cleaner. Sing Sing is also where shoes were made. There were a lot of shoes, boys and youth, and slippers, and of course the boots that were made by and for the incarcerated men. Beyond clothing, a huge variety of furniture was made in New York State prisons. Desks, benches, wardrobes, anything you might need to furnish a space. And there were design choices for all of these. In this catalog, I counted 10 different types of rocking chairs and 20 different styles of dining room chairs. Some of them were a bit more ornate. These are oak and mahogany, upholstered with leather, and others were a little bit more simple. These were primarily made at Auburn Prison, and while there was a wood shop at Sing Sing, most of the carpentry was being done upstate. But returning to items specifically made at Sing Sing, we see different brooms and brushes, lettered mats. So if you think of like welcome mats, except, these, you can see some different examples of what they might say: city hospital, armory, secretary of state. Sing Sing also had an iron foundry. So manhole castings and basin covers were made there. And they also made dumping trucks. You can see there were 3 different varieties that you could choose from. And so the last thing I want to do is return to the law establishing prison industries and call attention to one piece of Section 182. It specifically says the prices were set by the state and were supposed to match market price. So accompanying this catalog was a price list, and we're just going to take a quick look at the price of some things. So here's the list for the 20 different dining chairs, and they vary from $1 each all the way up to $12 per chair, and prices for some of the boots, shoes, and slippers. So with all of this, there are a few next steps for the museum. We collected this amazing rare book. It's from 1912. I've done my preservation work. It's safely stored, but now we have some more things to do. We need to look at how much similar items cost when they were not manufactured through prison labor. The law states prices will be as close to market value as possible. So we should probably look at how true was this. Another line of inquiry for us to investigate. Well, there were multiple editions of this catalog. The one we just looked at was the 10th edition. There were others. The museum also owns the 9th edition. So we want to look at how the goods offered changed over time and if that might correlate to changes at these facilities themselves. Did the woodshop at Auburn close and suddenly some of the carpentry is getting moved to a different location? But the final question we need to investigate is the larger issue of prison labor and the civil rights question surrounding it and the economic drivers that perpetuate it. So with that hanging in the air, I'd like to hand this off to my colleagues, Robert Rose and Mimi Coffey. Robert is the museum's communications coordinator and a researcher with a focus on dismantling the prison industrial complex, which we just got a small glimpse into, and working towards improving the lives of people currently incarcerated. Mimi, in addition to her work at the museum, is a criminal justice activist, blending the worlds of justice reform and media. So please, Robert and Mimi, take it away.
Nicole, I want to thank you so much. It's one thing to live it and then another thing to hear it from a historical point of view. So I just want to thank you. And I'm pretty sure Anthony is going to let us unpack it a little bit more. But I just want to thank everyone as well. My name is Minerva Mimi Coffey. Robert and I are your hosts for tonight's session with the Sing Sing Prison Museum. And tonight we are honored to welcome Anthony Small, whose journey from Sing Sing to social advocacy is a profound example of resilience and transformation. Anthony's story is not just about his time served and what was brought home, but the wisdom and change he embraced during and after his incarceration. I want to give everyone a brief bio on Mr. Anthony Small. His life is a remarkable tale of resilience and transformation. He was incarcerated in 1986 and returned home. Been home about 7 years now. Anthony's journey was one of continuous growth with the progressive environment of Sing Sing, as he called it. He himself called it that Sing Sing was progressive. There he achieved his educational triumph, including earning a master's degree while still having to serve a significant part of his sentence. Currently, Anthony works as a navigator for the Department of Mental Health and Hygiene, advocating for those marginalized by society. His passion extends from the YAP program and his personal project, A Tone for Life, on YouTube. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. He is wanting to produce it and is going to aim to uplift healing and empowering those who have lost hope. He is an advocate for wellness. Anthony embraced yoga during his incarceration, which he still continues to use as a source of balance and peace. His story is a powerful example of overcoming adversities, challenging experience into advocacy and inspiration. He believes adversity is particularly something that introduces a man onto himself. Anthony, thank you for being here with us. Robert, I'm going to give you a little bit of the stage just in case you want to say anything before I dive into this webinar.
No, that was interesting bio and introduction. I'm glad to be here. And we just want to wait to hear what Anthony has to say and follow along with the great conversation. Thank you all for being here.
Well, Anthony, I know we talked about two significant things you brought with you, but let's talk about the book that you brought back home. I know that, we sell books out here, but tell us a little bit about the book and why you decided to bring this book home with you.
Well, thank you, Mimi, Bobby, and I also like to thank Nicole and Amy as well for this opportunity to be a part of the great work that you guys are doing, shining more light on not just Sing Sing, but incarceration in general, and what people go through while incarcerated. So the book was very important to me because I was arrested at a very young age. I was arrested at 20 years old, and so was my development at that time because I was sentenced to 31 years to life at 20 years old, and I needed some self-development. So the book that I'm referring to, it's by Napoleon Hill. It's called Think and Grow Rich. And it's about visualizing yourself where you want to see yourself. It's about using your imagination. Einstein once said that imagination was more powerful than knowledge. And I was able to experience that, having to be incarcerated for so long, my entire adult life. And to have the vision that I had while incarcerated, it allowed me to do some of the things that I'm doing right now. So the book was very inspirational. And I still read it today. When I'm feeling, down or whatever the case may be, I'll read a few chapters to just inspire me.
Well, I don't want to just not acknowledge everything you said in this sentence. You talked about going into prison very young. Myself, I have a little experience in it. So I want to know, where did the book come from? Did one of the OGs give it to you? Was this something that everyone talked about? Take us there. Really take us there, especially at a young age. I know that going through time, you change. So let's go into this book.
Book I wasn't introduced to the book to several years after my incarceration, because being so young, I was still involved in a lot of things that I shouldn't have been involved. There's a lot of negative things that happen in prison, and I was involved in those things for a few years. And I did have a friend of mine. His name was Richard Sloan, and he had all these inspirational tapes, and he used to let me listen to these tapes. So I got one of the tapes, and Napoleon Hill was on, and he was talking about his book and stuff like that. So I finally decided to get the book. And when I ordered the book, I read it the first time, a lot of this stuff went over my head, but I read it again, and I kept reading it, and I began to understand more and more how powerful our minds can be if we know how to utilize it. And that's what I began to do.
Let me ask you this. Did you ever lend the book out, or was that something that you just tucked away, like you was in there?
Sadly to say, if you want to hide something from somebody, you put it in a book, especially in prison. So no, I didn't have to do that. People didn't even believe the things that I was believing during the time. And they just see me. Sometimes I would read my book every day, then I would go do yoga in the yard, and they were like, what is he doing over there, But I was actually visualizing the things I wanted in my life at that time. I saw my future, and I wanted to be able to make sure that I planned my destination. by mentally visualizing it. And that book, Think and Grow Rich, helped me to do that.
So another quick question, only because you put it out there. Why
Sure.
not leave the book behind then and pass it on? What made you decide, no, this was a journey that went with me and is coming with me, and I'm going to keep this book?
Well, everybody that knew me and that would listen to me, they knew the type of books I was reading. Most people didn't believe in how powerful the mind can be. That you can, whatever you think about, you're going to create eventually. And that's my belief. But most people didn't believe that. And I was in prison for a very long time, 31 years. So most people that I knew that I could even leave something like that to, they had went home before I did, you know, most of my friends.
Right.
And they didn't take stuff, they weren't as sentimental as I was. And I don't think, like even the boots now, people don't understand why I have those boots. You know, the boots that I have. I'm not moving ahead, but I have certain things I still
Oh no,
have.
that's a perfect segue into the
Well,
the books.
into the boots, yeah.
Into the boots. Please tell us
So,
about the boots that you brought home. And I know
right.
that you have them physically there, so the audience is going to get a chance to see it. I know we have a picture. Hopefully it'll go up, but my mouth is still open when we talk about the boots.
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, a lot of people would say, "Well, what's wrong with you? Why would you want to bring something like that home with you?" Again, for me, I went to prison at 20 years old. I had just turned 20 in 1986, and not knowing it then, but now, and years ago, I felt like now I believed it was an experience for me. It was a rebirth for, you know, it was an opportunity for me to give birth to myself and all I could potentially be when I got incarcerated. That's the only sense I could make out of it because it was such a traumatic experience. So I felt that that was a time for me to be able to become all I could be, and I needed to be where I was in order to do that. But the boots were so sentimental to me. There's an African proverb that says, never judge a man until you walk 100 miles in his moccasins. Well, the boots for me were with me since December 14th, 1987. So we're talking about over 35 years that I've had these boots. And everywhere I went outside of the prison, I had to have these boots on. So these boots were with me longer than I was alive before I was incarcerated. The 31 years superseded the 20 years I was incarcerated. So it came a point in my time incarcerated, I said, I might just hold on to these boots. These boots been with me since 1987. I hadn't realized it because you had to have, I hadn't realized it, to be honest with you, till it got, you know, a couple of years until I was about to go home. And I said, I had these boots since 1987. And I knew
longer
then,
than I was free.
exactly. And I knew then that I was taking these boots home with me as a symbol of the journey I had been on, because I knew I was getting out. At first, you never think you're going to get out, to be honest with you. Anybody that done a time like if sentenced to 31 years of life or 25 years of life, you haven't lived that long, so you don't know that you're going to be able to experience that type of time, you know, incarcerated. You would think that you would lose your mind. But long story short, those boots are still with me today. Can you see these?
We see them. Can we get a little closer?
I don't know.
Still like, yeah,
you,
we
they're a
can.
little, they leaning to the side a little bit. They leaning a
Let me
little
tell you,
bit.
they look like they're 37 years and plus.
Well, there they go.
You know, now you know where they belong. You remember when you're young and your mom puts your little first boots, Bronx. what are you gonna do with the boots?
But you know what? See, that's funny you said that because that's the first thing that came to my mind when I said I'm taking these joints home with me. And I said to myself, well, you know what? After I get the ultimate success, I don't know what it would be for me, because I have a broad spectrum that I see myself being at, and I would say I was going to get these bronze at a point in my life after being home. I've been home 7 years this month, the 26th. In that time, I've accomplished a lot. As I spoke to you, I told you I've worked for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene for the last 5 years, doing work that I was doing while incarcerated. Similar work, helping people, you know, just trying to forget about my circumstances and just put others before me. Help somebody, help yourself.
I'm telling you, and let me tell you, if we have a little bit of time, I want to talk about your boots and kind of what Nicole was talking about, how different things were manufactured and different clothing and all of that stuff. But hopefully we'll have a little bit of a time for that. And was there anything else that you brought home outside of the boots and the books that meant something to you? Because I know you talked about leaving something behind. And I want to go into that a little bit. I don't want to just come on, because you're a great storyteller.
Well, I didn't leave my mind behind. You know, that's one thing I didn't leave behind, because
Oh,
that
thank God.
well, exactly. You know, I say thank God as well to the Creator that I was able to come out, because me and Robin often talk about, you know, me being in prison for my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and a year of my 50s. You don't get that back, you know, so you lose that. That's gone. You can't do, you know, once you're in a prison setting and environment and they place you there, time out, that's what it means, time out. So that time is gone, you can't get it back. So I always say to myself that what I've gone through for me in my life, it was a journey that I needed to go on. And for me, it's not the end of the journey that mattered to me. It was the journey in the end. You know, that's what mattered to me the most. And I never say that my circumstances for me, they don't define me. I made some choices at a very young age, and I did some things that I'm truly sorry for. And that's what I'm atoning for in my life now. But my circumstances don't define me, but they have developed me to be the man that I am today.
I always told you, when I heard that from you, I said, I like that. I definitely like that. And your development doesn't come like, oh, he's out and it happened 7 years. I mean, let's talk a little bit, because I mentioned it a little bit in your bio about going to school. I know the work that you do now, but that also began inside. And I'm gonna throw it back to like what Nicole was talking about, like the uniforms. Did you have to have a different uniform when you work with the mentally ill inside or outside in the facility, or these boots and the uniform, suited and booted, was the same one throughout your entire journey?
No. Well, I want to, can I back up just a little bit? I want to back up just a little bit just to share
Come
this
on.
part, just to share this part of the story. So December 14, 1987, I was driven from Rikers Island in a bus, a bunch of kids driven from Rikers Island in a bus, and we were sent to Downstate Correctional Facility. This is a facility that prepares you whether you're going to a minimum, a medium, or a maximum security prison. Of course, I was going to a maximum security prison. So in that time, you're in a holding pen. There's a bunch of y'all don't know what's going on, and then they're preparing you to be processed. So they go by a list and they call your name out. A bunch of y'all at one time that's going to be going together in this group. And what they do is you take all your clothes up in front of a bunch of men and they spray you with lice shampoo, and they delice you and shower you down. And then they're giving you walk butt naked and you're given a uniform. They hand you a uniform with underwear, the same underwear and stuff that Nicole so eloquently spoke about. And they hand you that uniform, and they hand you a pair of boots. And then you go get dressed, and then you go to a housing unit. And then they prepare you for whatever day that you're going to go on your next journey, which mine was to Elmira Correctional Facility. From that facility, I was sent to Elmira Correctional Facility. But I say all that to say that that's where my journey began when I got those state boots. I was deliced, I was dehumanized, basically. See, I want people to understand the unhumane things that happen to you while you're in prison as well, so that we can understand that it's not just okay. You go to prison, you come home. It's a lot of traumatic things that for me will never leave. When I close my eyes, I still can see some of this stuff. I have to heal from this stuff that I've gone through in my life.
And let me tell you, you just brought up a great point, because a lot of people don't know you could have ingrown toenails, your feet could be messed up. They're not asking you the question, do you need sneakers? Do you need a Posturepedic boots? That is
Right.
what you're getting. They're steel toes. They're not the most comfortable shoe out there. As a matter of fact, your feet come out worse than you went in. And you don't even know that the experience, just like you said, begins right there when you're handed these uniforms. And a quick question, only because, like I said, your journey was so extended. When you went to these different facilities, were they making uniforms and boots and all of that stuff,
I've
or different type of things?
I've been to every facility that she spoke about that make this stuff. They might, I don't know when she got those statistics, but I know Clinton was making clothes. Auburn was making desk products, chairs and stuff like that. This is when I was in the prison system during that time. And I've been to all those facilities that made the prison, uniforms and boots and underwear. I've been to every one of them. And even the stuff that they made, the frames for the bed, the lockers, all that stuff was made, with basically, it was a good salary, I guess, in there for, it was one of the highest paid. You talking about 25 cents an hour. That's what you were getting to make stuff like that. But you were saving the prisons millions of dollars because they didn't have to manufacture anything, but they were able to produce through your labor.
And did you ask for like extra boots, or was that like really
Oh,
the
no,
only
no, 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 no. You
pair?
could, no, I could have gotten a different pair of boots. I could have,
Okay.
what is it, Bobby? Every year or something, you probably can get another pair, 2 years, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I could have got another pair.
I think
No, I just want
you
to
got
ask, but I know
used
the
pair
people want to
about
know,
every.
because
I just chose not to because those were the ones that were given to me, and I only wore them on transfers. Or if I've been to funeral trips with those boots on, I've been to transfers with those boots on, I've been to medical trips, because every time you leave the facility, you have to be what they call state down. That's all green uniform and those state boots. So that's only the really time that I wore them. I had my own personal stuff during the rest of the time that I was incarcerated. So it wasn't like that's the only thing I had to wear. I don't want to make people think that. In fact, I didn't like wearing those. I just happened to hold on to them and had them for so long. I said, well, wow. Why do I just hold on to these as something I can take home as a memory of all this trauma? Because I don't want to forget the trauma. I want to heal from the trauma.
definitely. And when you say so,
Can I answer your question? I'm so sorry. I don't know if I can answer your question.
no, I think you're very detailed, and you go into with so many. Yeah, it's just like more like I want to go in and get my questions, but then I'm like, I'm stuck with
Oh, sorry.
with your story. I really am, because a lot of people, like I said, they don't. I mean, even now you're enlightening me. Like, can you buy? Can you get more? The rules in regards to clothing change, and I know that you've seen the changes, and I know we also talked about, like, when I talked to you before about, like, what did you decide to leave behind, right? Because you did have other things, just like you told us. You had clothes, you had clippers. You told me there's certain things that you said, no, I'm going to leave behind. So I want to talk a little bit about that as well.
I also did bring home a few letters and a few cards, things that was, and of course my pictures, but I did left that out. I brought all my pictures home. I must have had about, no exaggeration, I actually counted them. It was almost 2,000 pictures in all that time. I mean, I've sent pictures out too before, but it was almost 2,000 pictures that I had over that time that I collected from family members, pictures I've taken inside incarceration. But what I left behind was things that other people could use. Not that they couldn't use the book, but there's physical things that people would ask me once they knew I made the parole board. Oh, can I get that? Can I get that? But I had already had in mind who I was going to leave certain things to anyway. People that were closest to me, that I felt like they could use it, or people that didn't have the access to have family members to give them stuff. I wanted to be a blessing to somebody. So what I did was I left certain things to certain people that I know that they needed and could use, and they couldn't get.
I want to talk a little bit about you calling Sing Sing a progressive prison. That really hit me, because we know that, prison is just toxic all over. But to at least say something of an experience that you took advantage of in Sing Sing, I would like to know more.
Well, before I got to Sing Sing, I had been to like 10 different maximum security prisons, so I have a pretty idea of what's progressive and what's not. I had came from Attica coming to Sing Sing. If anybody knows the history of Attica, it hasn't changed.
We do.
It hasn't changed. So when I got to Sing Sing, the first opportunity that I saw that they had there was the opportunity for me to get back in college. So automatically, to me, that's progressive. They got college going on, free college. Who wouldn't take advantage of that? So that's actually when I got to Sing Sing, I had to wait a few years because I had a disciplinary problem when I was in Attica and in the prison before that, because I was young, still growing and developing. And so I waited a couple of years in order to get inside the Hudson Link Mercy College program, which is why that's one of the most progressive prisons. They got Hudson Link Mercy College, where you can actually go to Mercy College and get you're getting a degree from Mercy College. This is the very degree that I utilize now to get the job at the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, working with New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and I just, the administration before that was de Blasio. This is the actual degree. So when we talk about progressiveness, I was able to get this degree from this prison. Hudson Link, this organization is not-for-profit that basically ran by formerly incarcerated men and women, and utilized this degree from Sing Sing. This is back in 2003 we're talking about. I didn't utilize this degree until 14 years later. Well, I graduated 2005. So I utilized this degree 12 years later, 2017 or 2018 when I came home, 13 years later.
So let me ask you this. When you were
23. Yes,
when you were working with the mentally ill in that division, was that after your degree, before your degree? Do you feel
that was after my master's degree, and I got my master's degree in 2007. After my bachelor's degree, which is 2005, I took a year off and I went to school the year later in 2007, which was a perfect time for me because I met someone there during that. I met a professor that was phenomenal. But I say all that to say everything was timing for me. So I went after getting my master's degree. You might not remember me telling you this. I said, wow, I got all the education I can get while in school. While in prison. I said, so what am I going to do now? I got a master's degree. What should I do now? So I have already were working with at-risk youth, a part of the YAP program, Youth Assistance Program, where New York City High School and Westchester County High School students were coming into the prison and we would share our stories with them. So I was already doing that. So I decided to do something that no one wanted to do. I began working with the mentally ill. The mentally ill, the OMH, at the OMH Office of Mental Health, they had social workers coming inside the prison, and they would hire guys like me that had an education, that knew how to work with people, had social skills, and I would be the go-between the social worker and the person that had the mental health issues. They called me back then an inmate program aide. So, and it's basically doing the same work, believe it or not, that I do today. I go out in New York City streets, New York City subways with a social worker. We work with homeless people, people that have mental health issues, and people that have homelessness issues, and we try to get them off the streets. If you listen to the mayor's conferences, New York City Mayor Eric Adams conferences all the time, when he's talking about the mental health units, he's talking about my unit. My unit is called HEAT. Health is the acronym, Health Engagement and Assessment Team. And we go out there and we do what we do. And I'm a person that's a navigator because these boots helped me navigate 31 years in prison. So that's why those boots are a symbol of even the work that I do. They call me a navigator. That's my title and position. I'm also what they call a community coordinator. So I'm in my own community working with those that are less fortunate and marginalized by society. And it gets harder and harder now, especially we already had a homeless issue for many, many years, but now it's getting worse now that we're also housing the migrants as well.
That's a lot, but I feel like you're the perfect person for that assignment. And I know, like you said, you talk about your advocacy work now and your personal work as well. Did you think you became an advocate from the inside? Do you think that
Yes.
Transformative work happened? What was did you see it happening gradually, or it was just no, this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I want to do? Because like you said, you went there so young and you didn't have inside you to find guidance, they're hard. They come in a handful to find the right positive guidance.
That's a great question. And I'll answer it by saying that there were men like me that were before me, and they helped me. I had mentors in prison, Maybe I didn't call them a mentor, but I watched them from afar and I saw what they were doing. But I also had men in my life that embraced me and said, yo, come on, let's go, this is gonna be helpful to you, you know what I mean? And your development is gonna be helpful to you when you on your way out the door or trying to even get out the door. It was a process, all that, I had to go to the parole board. I had to explain my situation 31 years later, what happened.
Was that the first time you went to the parole board, or you? kept
Fortunate-
going.
Fortunately, I don't know if you're aware of a program that they developed over the years for guys like myself that, got his degree, got his everything he needed. They developed a board you can go to 6 months prior to your board. It was called the LCTA, Limited Time Allowance Committee, where you go 6 months before. If you don't make it, you go to your regular board 6 months later. I went to that, and thankfully, I was released at that on that day. I didn't even get to go to my official parole board.
And you got released that same day?
I was able to, in sharing my story, telling what happened, I was able to show remorse, and all the things that I needed to show in order to convince them that they were making a good decision letting me come home. And I think that I've proven them right. I think I've proven them right going from the Department of Corrections to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, from one department to another. So
was your mindset ready to be free? Like, was everything packed? Was everything that, like the clippers and the stuff, were they given away already?
They were given away most stuff was given away way ahead of time. I actually, because I was moving to, I had moved from that facility that I made the parole board at, which was Fishkill, to another facility where everybody at the facility, which is called Queensboro Correctional Facility, it's a minimum where everybody has 90 days or less to go home. I was moved there. So there was no need for any property. There was no need, just commissary stuff to eat. There was no need for anything fancy there because everybody's going home. You have your clothes waiting for you that you're going to put on 90 days, 60 days, or 30 days, whenever you're going to get out.
That is awesome. I'm so happy for you, because I know that's not everyone's story. It's really not. And I am excited that everything you did positive and it just came out. I mean, even now with your advocacy work, I'm like really, really proud of you. I did want to ask you a question in regards to Sing Sing, and not Sing Sing the prison, Sing Sing Prison Museum. It has stored a lot of stories from the past with many narrative. And as a former resident and now a Freeman, how do you see the role of places like the Sing Sing Prison Museum in driving social change?
Well, I think if I can just back up just for 2 seconds, I think I'm going to answer that question. But I think what I also sort of, I feel like I left out talking about Sing Sing, why it was so progressive, because of Hudson Link. There were donors that showed so much interest in that particular educational opportunity because the recidivism rate was 0.1% at one time. It never went above a percentage point. And they had people like Warren Buffett, Ozzie Davis, Whoopi Goldberg. They would come in and be donors. They would come to graduation to support us. So that's one of the reasons why I said it was so progressive. What prison can you meet Warren Buffett at? And you can actually Google this information. I'm not just saying this. What prison can you meet Warren Buffett in? The 4 richest men in the world. So I digress, but I had to put that in there because there were so many opportunities just to be able to be in the same room with a person like that, Warren Buffett. And you're in that room because you did something good, not because you did something wrong, so it's a great opportunity to do something positive. And like I said, that was the most important prison that I spent time in. That I did 15 years there. So that's more than half my time as well that I spent there. But one of the things I'll say about this opportunity in this Sing Sing Museum, I think that it's going to push you guys further when you are able to talk about stuff like we're talking about tonight. And that is the trauma also that comes with spending 31 years in prison. Right now, I'm going through different things personally with my son, because of the brokenness in our relationship, the trauma he went through not having me in his life, and me not even know how to be a father now. It's a lot that comes with doing this time. So I think when you began to shed light on stuff like that, I know that you guys.
Well, we can let me tell you, the audience just asked right now, and I'm gonna throw it out, and it's gonna come back to what you were talking about. They are curious to hear about how moving location disrupted the community, friendship, family, bonding, all of that stuff, and how hard was it to move location, and what was the process to move people.
When you say move
So-
from prison to prison, but move, you say move from prison to prison?
Prison to prison, because like you said, it's not just moving. You're losing contact with your family. They're not seeing you. Then you got to come back home and try to fix something that has been broken for so long.
So let me try to answer that real, both the questions, but I will try to answer the first one first. So when you're moving from prison to prison, the first thing that happens to you, you're told by the officer, go lock in your cell, and they lock you in. And they say, I say, why am I locked in? They say, because you're on a draft. You're leaving the facility. So you have no more contact with anybody. You have to get somebody to call your family and tell them, yo, I'm on a draft. I don't know where I'm going yet. I'll let you know when I get there. That's the first thing that happens.
No warning, no warning.
No warning. The next thing that happens is officers come to your cell and they have an itemized list for all the things that you're taking with you. And they itemize that list and put it in draft bags. And then they take them and you leave in your cell with nothing. And they put those in the receiving room where you leave and you come into the facility. Your stuff go to the receiving room. And then on that morning, that stuff, 6 o'clock in the morning, you have to get up early in the morning. You're the first ones up, and you get up in the morning, you go to the receiving room, and you're waiting for your bus to come, and your stuff, your draft bags, get on the bus with you to ship you wherever you're going. That's the process. Or you also, by the way, every time you go into a facility or a visit, or you leave a facility, coming in and out of a facility, or a visiting room visit, or anywhere you go out of the facility, you're stripped butt naked. You're stripped butt naked, and they search you to make sure you're not taking nothing out with you, or you're not bringing anything in with you into the facility. So that's the answer to that question. To answer the question about the brokenness and the trauma of leaving your son at 15 months and coming back home to a grown man that's a shell of himself, I can't even explain what I've gone through because of what I brought on myself. My son reminds me all the time that, this is what you decided to do. And he didn't realize that I wasn't in my right frame of mind as an adolescent. I was 19, just going on 20 when I was doing some of the things I was doing. I didn't really understand I didn't really understand the consequences. So, and even, unfortunately, I wasn't the only one that went to prison in my family. So I've experienced what my son experienced, because at 9 years old, my father was sentenced to 15 years to life. Approximately 10 years later, I found myself in prison too, along with my father. Unfortunately, he was in a medium facility because he was on his way out of prison, and I was in a maximum security prison because I was on my way into the prison, doing life. He was finishing life, 15 years, and I was starting 31 years to life. So it's a lot of trauma that I experienced as well, that I'm still healing, trying to heal from. When I used to go see my father in prison, I've, had to go to a prison that I actually saw my father in,
people really don't understand that, but I appreciate you, just even sharing this journey with us, because like I said, hopefully this will even reach your son, because it's all right now about healing. It's definitely we are different people. These experiences definitely change us. And just going back, just even holding on to the memories and the boots, it's like we can't go backwards. It's only about going forward. You can't even mess up. You don't want to mess up. These constant reminders of everything we lost, and I know we can't fix it, but we could definitely make a difference.
We can atone for it. We can atone for it. In a lot of ways, what I do in my life, even the work that I do when I was in prison, because I used to work with the men. Not only did I work with the young people in the YAP program used to come through from the New York City high schools and Westchester County high schools, but I also began to work with the men that would come to Sing Sing through an orientation program. So I would work with the men that were either coming into the facility or that were getting ready to go home and leave the facility. So I was preparing men for whatever they can, take advantage of while they were in prison. I was also telling men, listen, this is what you need to keep your mind on when you get out of prison. So I had both experiences.
No, and I'm gonna tell you something. I appreciate it just for you being you, because for someone who came from the same experience, not that many people are like that. And I just want to tell you that I definitely appreciate you being with us on this platform, sharing your story and your experience. And we're going to continue to put this out there. It's going to live in YouTube, but we want to continue to support you. And I told the audience about your YouTube channel. It's not yet on, but what we want everyone to do is follow us. Amy is going to put it on the newsletter. We need at least 100 followers before even content comes out. I know it's going to be amazing. Talk a little bit about that if you want, because I know we're about to wrap up, and tell us how we can support you.
Well, you're going to be helping me in this endeavor now that I know that you know how to do all this stuff, because I really don't know anything. I'm not really computer savvy. However, I am very passionate about people that have been traumatized, like us, people that have been in prison. And I think we have to find ways to heal. And my platform is going to be a place where we can heal. You know, we can atone for things that we've done in our lives. A lot of times it's hard to forgive. It was hard for me to forgive myself. I could not forgive myself what I'd done, not only to my family, you know, more importantly to myself, because in the end, I'm the one that was going to suffer. And I'm still trying to find ways to forgive myself. And I do that every day through the work that I do, and even sharing my story, because I don't want to see anyone else go through what I've gone through, or my mom, or any of my family, you know, especially my son. I love my son, but my son doesn't know how to
you know what? He became a victim too. That's what I say about my son. They become victims as well. And it's all about healing those that we hurt.
I know. And I just wish there's a way I can help them, because just to be totally transparent, because I'm a person that believes that the truth will set you free. And when I say it set you free, it means that it will set you free from the circumstances you're dealing with when you talk about them. My son recently, before the new year, wished me, he said to me, Liz, you know, I can't wait for you to die. I don't know how anybody can deal with that, especially when it's your only child, but it was tough on me. It was really difficult on me to hear my son say that to me. So I said, well, I got a whole lot more atoning to do if my son still feels that way about me. You know what I mean? And I know I've done the best that I can under the circumstances, having been incarcerated as long as I have. And I sent you the pictures of me with the mayor of New York City now, you know, both administrations working closely to my community, you know, to try to help people that are less fortunate. And I've done that. Forget about just doing it for 5 years that I've been working for the department. I was doing that when I was incarcerated for the last, I don't know, 15 years, you know, before I even came home. So I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity.
We're here to support you, Anthony. I know we've done time. It takes time to heal, but we are here to support you. I know that the audience is not the last time you're going to hear from Anthony. And, you know, me and Robert are here for you. I'm going to leave the floor to Amy because I know we're wrapping it.
We are. I mean, there's so much more to say and think about, and you know, there are the objects, but then there are the intangible things that we bring home and leave behind, right? And I'm still reeling from this idea that you could spend years in a facility and not have the opportunity and the decency to be able to say goodbye to your friends. That must feel like such a severing of humanity at that moment. But there are so many things. That's just one of the things that you said that resonated for me tonight. I want everyone to clear your schedule after Valentine's Day on February 15th. We're back in the room at 7 p.m. It's always the second Thursday evening of the month. I also really want to encourage, as we start 2024, to have people sign up for our e-blast, which pops up right when you get to the main page of our website, because the e-blast comes out once or twice a month and really keeps you informed about things that we're doing. We have really exciting things planned for the coming year, and the voices collectively together will be strong, and together we can really change the conversation. So Anthony, we wish you all the best in 2024, and we look forward to continuing to learn with you and from you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, and thank the audience. Very engaging with them, Anthony. They were with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, audience, as well.